Rashad, you and I have a similar problem in that we are both parts of the design world, but we are not of the design world. And when we look at this design universe, specifically the design system universe, we do a lot of head scratching. There's a lot going on where we say, why is it that we need to have so many tools involved in this process? We want to build one product, but we've got to have all these tools open. You were just telling me an anecdote about a customer that you just spoken to, and tell me a little bit more about what they said to you and why they are tearing their hair out right now.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think the story that you hear over and over again is this story of having different tools that we're utilizing, whether it be Confluence for documentation, or the engineers using Storybook, or Jira for task management, or Figma for design, or having our code in different Git repositories. And then, having to have like a spreadsheet just to keep track of where everything is kind of
So
a
hang on a
challenge.
second. The person you spoke to has a separate spreadsheet to keep track of all of the other tools.
That's right.
That's
And
mental.
just, tracking all the tools with one spreadsheet. And just think about like what that looks like for on a day-to-day basis for everybody.
Hmm.
That's 17 tabs open on your web browser and trying to keep track of where this is and where that is. That's making phone calls and trying to track down, hey, where's the most recent version of our button designs? Hey,
Hmm.
where do we have these components and which libraries do we have these in?
Hmm.
And what ends up happening is there's a lot of inefficiencies that get created because the different tools create an environment that allows for everybody to be siloed within their different areas.
Hmm.
And as a result of that, what ends up happening is you have all these challenges with handoffs, with finding information, with accessing the newest and most relevant things. And when you start looking at the symptoms initially, you really kind of start thinking, well, I need better documentation so I can document this better. And really, if even if we get the best documentation, if we're having to scroll through 3 or 4 tabs trying to find it and getting other people to look at it and come into our world to take a look at the documentation or update it, it becomes like challenging. Like if nobody uses it, doesn't matter how good it is, it's not going to get used. So I think what I see is very similar to a lot of the other industries where you have different tools that are disparate from each other and all in different places. And there's an opportunity to bring it into one web browser page instead of having
Yeah.
17 tabs, into one tab of a web browser, and getting a view that represents the single source of truth, where we are,
Hmm.
what's the current version, what it's going to look like, and being able to allow everybody to have that view, all the
Yeah.
stakeholders.
So one of the things that I think is necessary and obvious is that we are not suggesting that you throw out Figma and you throw out Git and you throw out all these different systems, but rather that there is a view, a place where the designer, the developer, the engineer can see a singular expression of what all of these different tools are trying to do. So that you might take the concept that's in your head and create a prototype and immediately see what the effect of that might be on React or on the Figma file or in the documentation. And that unified view is not saying, hey, I know you just spent the last 10 years trying to integrate all these products, you should just throw them out. But rather, wouldn't it be great if there was a tool that showed you what the unified perspective of all of those tools are?
Yeah, exactly. And look, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. If there's already a great way of doing this, then let's continue doing that. I think what we recognize, the pain that we're trying to solve is the collective pain that is operational, that everybody's feeling in a in an environment like that, where the folks that are providing the design files, perhaps that's a Figma file,
Hmm.
they are providing that to the engineers, and the engineers go off and try to create those components and come back, and then the designers are saying, well, this is not exactly what I had in mind, and then they're reiterating. And it's
Yeah.
not until the next sprint that you really find out if it meets the intent that you had as a designer. And just imagine the friction that that creates between
Yeah.
the two groups. And so what we're saying is, if we can allow for the Figma file to be rendered in a central environment, as well as the different components from libraries such as React and so on, and bring those all in one place, and then start being able to prototype and see it and visualize that,
Hmm.
and then have our documentation there. And everybody now is looking at one single central source of truth. It's all in one place.
Yeah.
Then imagine what that does for all the processes moving down the line. It allows for a real-time view of exactly where we are and what things would look like, not how
Yeah.
we can imagine it to look like, and all these additional benefits.
Yeah. So when we think about what we're trying to do as Knapsack, the idea is synonymous with that idea that you just described, is not throw everything out that you've been working on, but rather bring it together in a single location, a single dashboard, if you will, where you can see all of these changes. And so that, yes, there might be some consolidation. You may need to replace some of the things that you've done, but you're replacing it not with a net new tool every time, but rather all of that functionality is already built into Knapsack. So yes, you'll need Figma, and yes, you'll need a repository, but you'll be able to get rid of, or at least start replacing, the things where your documentation and all your components live, and start having those live inside Knapsack. So fewer tools, but also respecting the fact that design still needs a home in Figma and code still needs a repository.
Right. And if we can reduce the number of tabs on your web browser, and we can turn that into two or three instead of 17, then we've done a good job of solving a lot of the challenges there. And
Mm,
yeah, there's going to be the primary tools that, depending on which area you're contributing to, that you're going to work on, that may be Figma, that may be whatever it may be, that's always going to continue. But at least we can all come to one place
yeah.
collectively, all stakeholders, and see, like, where are we? And if we can
Hmm.
do that and improve and streamline the handoff process, and we can create more predictability in what the end digital product is going to look like, there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah. Plus the stability, as we've heard from our most recent customer interactions, is that what our enterprise customers are looking for is a secure, stable place for all of this to happen. There is a reality in an enterprise that, in order for that enterprise to exist and scale, and also bring in some of the other brands or components from other product portfolio pieces, that there has to be a stability there. That has to be the thing that we are selling to our users, to our designers, to our developers, to our engineers, is that you are guaranteed that this thing will be stable and that will always provide you with the access to those different elements of your design, your product creation.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Richard. The stability and the security aspect of that. When we were just talking, we were kind of keeping it at a very simple level, where the assumption is it's one design input, one engineering input. As
Mm,
you start looking at the complexities that grow within a larger organization, there's multiple sources that start contributing. You have
hmm.
component libraries coming in from Angular, from React. You have engineers that are in-sourced or outsourced engineers. You have designers that are the same, multiple people. And so you can see how quickly, if we can't have it all in one place, how quickly this can get out of hand and
Yeah.
unmanageable. And so Knapsack, I really see as the value that it can create is, let's bring it all in one place so that if we do have turnover, that person doesn't leave with all their tribal knowledge, right?
Mm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and and it's, people are constantly, they're getting poached by recruiters, and being, taking promotions at other locations. These things happen. And so if that happens, then do they take all that knowledge of, they're not taking the proprietary information. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that they know what should be in those spreadsheets, like where this resides, where this code snippet
Yeah.
is, where that design file is, where the latest version is. So if we're
Yeah.
relying on individuals, they very well may do a great job, but we have to have systems in place.
Yeah, I mean, that single point of failure has always been the greatest nightmare of every manager, right? Like if you lose your best person and that person has been managing your design system, then you're losing months of work because you've got to find somebody to go and dig around and audit that system in order for it to get back online at the same level of quality that it was providing to the team before that person left. And I think,
Yeah, and
it's
even and just even to add to, like, from the perspective of the person who has the tribal knowledge, like if I'm going to take a week off to go on vacation, the last thing I want is to get phone calls about, hey, where is this?
Mhm.
Where's the latest
Right.
version? So
Yeah.
there's an incentive in it for me as well to systemize a lot of the things that maybe I have hidden in my thoughts somewhere.
Yeah. And we've also entered into a new, should we say, phase of asset management where now that digital has become the cornerstone of many brands' experience, the touch point for almost all consumers, is that when it was an external brand and it lived in, say, the brand Bible and was managed by a brand agency or at least an internal brand agency, there's a certain kind of quality standard there. But now we've got multiple products under the digital umbrella. Plus, we've got all those retail products. We've got the touch points within the store. We've got kiosks. We've got a lot of different things that the consumer is interacting with. And that brings a lot of complexity that we didn't have to deal with 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we do need a different solution. The solution that worked 20 years ago doesn't work today. And so we have to have something that speaks to the modernity and the complexity of the reality that we're living right now.
Absolutely. And, what comes to my mind when you were talking about is this concept of consistency. And,
Mm-hmm.
you start talking to some folks who talk about how if you look at all the different buttons on our website, they're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, having a connected system in which we can, for example, utilize things like tokens and patterns to be able to create that consistency across all of the user experience that resides with our end users is extremely valuable. Um, and, we touched a lot about this operational challenge that we saw solved,
Mm-hmm.
the collective pain that we resolve. But like the other way to look at it is that once you've been able to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
you're able to ship product faster, and you're able to meet your company objectives better, like what is the real value there to, like, the people at the top, the executive
Yeah.
stakeholders? Now you're able to get a step ahead of your competitors. You're able to create
Mm-hmm.
that user experience for everybody that has some objective behind it, whether that is
Mm-hmm.
monetizing it, or it's creating more users, or whatever that is. We're able to solve, or contribute to help those things move faster as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just going to repeat everything back. We're looking at a system that's keeping up with the changing landscape of digital and kiosk and brand management. We're looking at a system that's stable, that's secure, that has all these inbuilt enterprise-ready, scalable elements to it, and has a level of responsibility to the fact that we're moving into an era where we don't want to be managing a Frankenstack with, as you said, 17 tabs open with all 17 different accounts with 17 different SaaS platforms. We do see a future where companies are being asked by just the plain economics of an organization to consolidate, to think about what it is that they're having online, the security risks of having multiple products, and also the complexity of managing that, having design ops, dev ops, product ops people to rein in this Frankenstack. We really need a tool that has a much more thoughtful approach to this than just say bolt on another thing. Right? We want to start from scratch, and that's what Knapsack really is. It's a new view, a new clarity, a new way of thinking about this new complex world that we live in.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly, Richard. And I think that if we're just looking for a better tool, we're adding an we're just adding to the problem.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, how can we start bringing things all in one centralized view? I think that's the goal there.
Yeah. Rashad, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll do this sometime again. We'll just keep picking at the Frankenstack and see if we can make sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Richard.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.